Hi, so today we're going to be looking at transitioning over to Windows 11 for all of our PCs here in the office. My name is Scott Rhodes, and I am part of the IT department, and I have been tasked with checking hardware compatibility. And so that's what we're going to take a deep dive into today. And so just an outline here for our presentation. We're going to be looking at the Windows 11 hardware requirements. That's important, just to make sure everything is up to date and see what needs to be replaced or upgraded. Take a look at our current hardware, what we have, what's deployed, how many, and see what's up to spec and what isn't. And our department's ready for Windows 11 already. We have quite a few of them, so we'll get into that. And the department's requiring new hardware, which we have many of those as well. So we'll break that down. And then, of course, a timetable and coordinating with other teams. And then lastly, we'll cover ordering and price. So the Windows 11 hardware requirements are pretty straightforward. The top three are the ones that we're going to kind of focus on. A 1 gigahertz processor with 2 or more cores, and it's compatible with 64-bit. That's important. That's kind of where we fall short on the ones that need to be replaced. We'll dive into that a little bit more later. 4 gigabytes of RAM, we all have that currently in our systems. Some of the processors fall short, but we are looking okay in that area. 64 gigabytes of storage, most computers have that nowadays. That's not too steep of a requirement. We may look to expand some of that storage space should we need to, but that one's a pretty low bar. And of course, updates and things over time can kind of bloat that storage space. Graphics card here, most integrated graphics, you don't necessarily need a card compatible with DirectX 12 or later. Even integrated graphics on the board, the motherboard itself, can handle most of that, so it's not necessarily a card. Integrated graphics would work fine too. And the rest of these are pretty modern, standard by today's standards, unless it's a really old computer, which we are dealing with in some departments. So those are the ones we need to replace. Secure Boot compatible, and then the TPM module 2.0. It's been around, but if it's an old system like we have in some cases, we do need to get that upgraded. And then a typical display, 720, not too steep there either. And then, of course, an internet connection for updates and such. So our current hardware, this is what we're looking at for the ones that are up to speed. So you can see there I have the numbers. There's 82. We have lots of Optiplex. Those are perfectly fine. The laptops as well. These are Dell computers. And then the Lenovo, that desktop works just fine as well. And then the Latitude laptops, we have several variations of those Latitude laptops, which those all meet specs. Those are fine, no issues there. We have a Precision Tower workstations, and then that's an HP, and then a Lenovo. We have a few of those, and those are all up to spec, so no problems with those. And those follow within the departments that are ready for Windows 11. So we've got the administrative office, finance, sales, research and development, and then our IT support team. All of those are good to go. No changes needed. They can run Windows 11. If we ever felt like there was a performance issue, we have a little bit of room to upgrade, but the core mechanics there are perfectly within the specs for Windows 11. And lastly, which is very important, our current Windows Server 2012 R2 system will support these new Windows 11 clients. So there's no changes needed on our server infrastructure, which is really good. And so I'm looking at the departments here that do require new hardware. We have the main processing facility. This is where the bulk of the ones that are quite old fall into. There's 120 deployed that are running on this older Dell Optiplex 320 desktop. That's a pretty old system. And the fault really is mostly the CPU and the motherboard that supports that CPU. Shipping and receiving, not quite so many. So we have some Toshibas. These are fairly old satellite systems, and the Optiplex 755. Not quite as old as the 320, but still fairly old in terms of its CPU support for newer operating systems. And then facilities and maintenance. We have the Optiplex GX110, also an older system that you don't find nowadays quite so much. So for a timetable and coordinating with other teams, um, so ordering hardware now would be ideal. It allows the manufacturer to start putting together the number of PCs to order, particularly in one department where we have 120 or so. That can take some time to get those together. On the plus side, though, there are computers that can support Windows 11 now, about half of them. So we can go ahead and start training. Depending on the training team's outline, this phase may last 1 to 2 weeks, just depending on what they decide and have to coordinate with them. In terms of testing and then compatibility, even with the hardware specifications meeting Windows 11, of course it's important to test the systems that we do have, make sure that they're working and there aren't any issues, or if we have any issues that we can have time to iron those out. And then the final rollout date is August 28th. And with a successful rollout of one department, the other departments will typically follow, assuming everything goes smoothly. So that does put us at a total of 156 total computers. And these two choices are, since we use the Optiplex fairly regularly, we have a lot of these Dell computers already in circulation. There's a couple options here, the $500 one and then the $680. You do see a slight variation between the two, since the number was a rather large number of computers that need to be replaced. The smaller one might be the more ideal option for certain departments, and kind of selectively picking the higher option for certain other departments that may need that increase in hardware. The difference between these two here is that one is an i3 processor, one is an i5, so you get a performance boost in that, and then one has 4 gigs of RAM and the other one has 8. So you are going to see a bit of a performance increase faster to perform tasks, but as you can see here, I did put the total. It's quite a number, but when you need to replace that many number of computers, you are looking about that. And for $500 and an Office PC, that's a pretty good price range. These are, come with the monitor and the keyboard, and they do have Windows 11 pre-installed on them already. So we would just need to get them up to date with the software that we need. So in conclusion, we do have quite a few computers that need to be replaced. It's 156. And that's due to their older CPU. The reason we don't just replace the CPU is the newer CPUs have a different pen type, which require a different motherboard, and when you're looking into another motherboard, you got to replace the RAM. And so you're looking at a new computer when you're starting to get into, those kinds of core components. And the transition can begin now, because most of our computers, or at least half or so, are already Windows 11. They already meet those requirements, so we can go ahead and get that on the way while we're waiting for the new hardware to arrive for the departments that desperately need it. And of course, the teams will have to coordinate to ensure like a smooth transition. We have 4 teams altogether, so we would need to communicate and kind of roll that out in a process that makes sense for everybody. And the choice of PC to purchase may depend on the department's needs, so you can mix and match. You may only need a certain department to have, a more lower end computer, whereas some departments may need that extra speed. And that's based entirely on need. And I do have some citations here. There's, of course, the Windows 11 requirements. That's a good reference. if you ever need to look it up. And there's a Windows 11 supported Intel processors, which is the bulk. We don't have any AMD here, but that list is a pretty comprehensive list. It's rather long. That will kind of give you an idea of what is supported and kind of where to go from there. And then the other two links, of course, are the initial desktop that I picked out, which is $499, and then the other one with a little bit more of a performance boost. But both are fully Windows 11 compatible and come with it pre-installed. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.